Hello and welcome to the Her Hoop Stats podcast from Tampa on Friday night. Megan Gauer and Calvin Wetzel hanging out. We just got done watching the games. Megan went down to the press conference, so sure going to have lots of insight from that. But we're mostly just excited to talk about the basketball that we just watched. A couple blowouts, which I was hoping for at least one close game tonight. Hopefully we get that on Sunday. But we're going to start with game one. South Carolina beat Texas. Megan, just what was your initial reaction from that game, and how did South Carolina get it done?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for South Carolina, one, was their three-point shooting. I think they finished the game 7 of 11 from three, got a bunch from Te-Hina, got other players chipping in on that as well. Raven Johnson hit one, Bree Hall hit one, so it's just like kind of a team effort on the three-point shooting, and that really gave them an edge, especially against a Texas team that just doesn't take or make a lot of threes.
No, Texas. We were just looking
They
at
did
the
make
box
4
score.
today, so
They made
Texas.
4. They made 4. Lee had 3 of them, and then they had one in the last minute in garbage time. They made 2 combined in the first 3 games against South Carolina this year, so they doubled that in one game tonight. But it wasn't enough when South Carolina was shooting over 60% from 3 themselves. But what did you think about South Carolina's defense too on the other end? Because they held Texas down to me all night.
Yeah, and I think we were looking at the box score right before this, and it's 17 combined points from Texas on second chance points or points off of turnovers, and that's the way that Texas makes most of their offense. So they just really took away what Texas does best, and I think that was huge for them. And then getting Madison Booker into foul trouble early on too. You know, she had 2 in the first quarter, the third one when she went back in the second quarter. I think Texas in the first half was able to be effective when she was on the court, but just not having her on the floor really hurt them.
Yeah, they took a 12-4 lead. They were still up 12-7. The first time that she went to the bench with foul trouble, and I don't actually remember the first foul, but the second one and the third one were very unnecessary. It wasn't like preventing an easy bucket or anything like that. So that was really big for them. And I think, Texas, I think what got exposed tonight with them is that they just don't have enough of a different array of ways to score. Obviously, they hit the offensive boards pretty hard. In general, tonight, South Carolina kept them off the offensive glass. When they're able to create turnovers, get out and run, they can get easy buckets that way. South Carolina took care of the ball. And then Madison Booker could just go get a bucket, but when she's on the bench, she's not going to be able to do that. Outside of that, you don't have the other shooters around there. And the few that you have, like most of them aren't taking threes anyway because for some reason this offense is stuck in the 80s. And when you take away those options, there's just not a lot else that they have to hit you with in terms of offense, and I think that's what we saw tonight. But from South Carolina, like what's your biggest takeaway from what you saw tonight that you feel like it should give them confidence, I guess, going into Sunday?
I think just winning in the fashion that they did. I think obviously they got here and they won their regional round games, but they didn't dominate those games. They beat Duke 54-50. I forget what the final score was exactly against Maryland, but it was another close game. Their offense just kind of didn't look as good as it looked tonight in those games. So I think just seeing the threes going down, seeing things clicking on the offensive end and the defensive end as well, kind of should help them hit their stride going into Sunday, because it kind of felt like they didn't really look like what you expect South Carolina to look like last weekend.
That is a great point. That I feel like it's got to be a confidence booster, which is weird to say about a team that was on a winning streak needing a confidence booster.
Right,
but
and like back-to-back could win back-to-back national champions.
Yeah, 3 out of 4. Caitlin Clark may end up being the only thing preventing them from four-peating. But like you even go back before the Duke and Maryland game, they had to kind of sweat out that Indiana one for a while in the second round, and they didn't look crisp. They sputtered a little bit. Their talent and their cohesiveness was able to get them by all 3 of those games, but it wasn't easy. And we were looking coming into this game as Texas as the team that was playing a lot better, completely smothered TCU, go down the line in all 4 of their wins, and they never really had an issue. And South Carolina just flipped the script on them tonight. So I think that's a great point by you, just building confidence in them. Was there anything else that you wanted to hit on with that game before we
I feel like Joyce Edwards deserves a shout out from South
Yes,
Carolina too. She had a
absolutely.
double tonight, 6 assists, which is just crazy for a freshman or not point guard, freshman post player. So
Yeah.
she just had a spectacular game and a player that struggled in the regional rounds to come in as a freshman on this stage in this environment and just be able to deliver and be so calm for her team. I think that bodes really well for them on Sunday too. I think we'll get into Sunday's matchup eventually, but like they're gonna need everything they can get on Sunday, and I think having her playing at that level is huge.
Yeah, well, and the assist especially was, I believe, doubled her career high with 6 assists. But to me, the coolest thing about that, I'm glad you brought her up, is that it seems like Dawn, usually rightfully so, very much leans on experience in
Mhm.
big moments, the bigger the game. And some of her younger players, she kind of goes to more in games where they're probably going to win anyway, or when it gets out of hand. And today, this is as big as the stage
Yeah,
gets. And she leaned on a freshman, and the freshman delivered. And I thought that was really cool to see, and bodes really well for them in the next few years as well.
agreed.
So, excellent point. Should we talk about UConn UCLA?
I think we should talk about UConn
Let's talk about
UCLA.
UConn UCLA, especially resident UConn expert here. What did you see out of UConn tonight?
I mean, they looked like they could do whatever they wanted to, basically on both ends of the floor. Like I thought they would win that game. I didn't think they would win that game in that fashion at all. It is the largest victory in Final Four history, which is wild.
Really,
Yeah,
I did not
they
see
said that
that.
in the press conference
Wow,
downstairs. So yeah, largest victory in Final Four history. I think what stood out for me from UConn, and Gina said this in the press conference too, is like Paige played fine, but Paige didn't have a 40-point amazing game for them to win like this. She didn't have 10 assists. Like it wasn't Paige's best game. And Gina said this like last year, Paige played like that. Like they couldn't win a game. And this year, Paige has that performance. It doesn't matter. They win the game by 30.
yeah, I think. I mean, before the game, you were saying, and this is so true. I think how Aaron asked us how much Paige is going to score, and you said it depends. Like how do they need her to score?
Yeah,
Because if they needed to score 30 to win, she's going to go score 30. They didn't
needed.
need her to score. She probably could have scored 0 points today, and they would have won.
Yeah.
They didn't really need almost anything from her because everyone was stepping up. Az was hitting shots early, Sarah Strong late, and I actually watched the press conference up here on this TV too. So I saw when someone asked Gino about having those three players all clicking, and a lot of his championships he's had kind of that big three, and he was just kind of joking about like, yeah, well, it's obviously like you need good players to win a championship, but feels like in recent years they haven't had as many good players healthy, and now they have so many good players healthy that Paige can have a night like this and doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think you've seen the depth tonight. Obviously, we're talking about Sarah and Az, and they were both spectacular. But Jenna Alfie, a player that maybe hasn't made a ton of contributions for them so far in this tournament, her defense on Lauren Betts today was just outstanding. She was so good for them. And I think it's just every game there's been someone like that. In the Elite Eight, it was Caitlin Chen. The game before that, I think Ashlyn Shade hit a bunch of threes. KK Arnold the game before had like a huge defensive performance. So it's every night they get some what they need from Paige, Az, and Sarah, and then they get something from someone else too. And I think that's really the difference maker is that they have those other pieces to step up now.
Yeah, it's not even it is a big three, but then
Mhm.
you're also gonna have probably at least four, maybe five players on any given night really performing at a high level, sometimes maybe seven, which just makes this team so dangerous. And you mentioned the defense on Lauren Betts. I think we gotta go back to that
Yeah.
because El Alfie, obviously a big part of that, but I think the whole team scheme around her, and she had 26, like she had half their points.
Mhm.
So you can look at the box score and say like, wow, they let her go off. But that's very misleading to me because I thought that, I mean, she had to work for her 26.
Right.
First off, I don't know how many assists she had. I dropped my box score. Uh, she only had one. Yeah, and that's a part of her game I think that has really evolved this year from her first couple
Mhm.
years in college is being able to pass out of those doubles and find people. But tonight, what I thought UConn did a really good job of was not letting her get comfortable in reading those doubles and where they were coming from and when they were coming.
Mhm.
They mixed up like the timing and everything. And so I just didn't feel like she was able to get into a rhythm to kind of figure out how to read those doubles. And the times that she did, the times that they got the ball in there
Yeah.
and she read the double and she passed it out. UConn's rotations were so quick that they were closing out. They were there. Usually, when that happens, like Lauren Betts is passing it out. There's an open shooter. They're knocking it down. That's what we've seen from
Mhm.
UCLA all year. Is that when teams do that, players like Gabby Jaquez, players like Kiki Rice, players like Tamia Gardner go off from three, and that didn't happen tonight because UConn was right there on the catch, and that's what I was most impressed by.
Yeah, I think when you look at this box score, obviously it looks like Lauren Butts had a pretty good night, but I think what they took away is just they couldn't get it into her every possession. And if you watch a lot of UCLA basketball this year, yes, she scores a lot, but also she touches the ball in almost every possession. They run the ball through the post and then kick it out, like you said, for open shooters, run something else, but it always goes inside. And they took away the ability to get the ball inside a lot of times today. So she gets her 20 points, but like she doesn't get all those kickouts and all those other sets that UCLA likes to run when they feed the ball through the post.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it too, is that, even when they got the ball in there, they made it difficult, but they made it really hard to get the ball in there, and
Mhm.
in the press conference, they were talking about the pressure, and that's a big part of it. Like, people think about post defense as happening in the post, but it's on the perimeter
Mhm.
with your guards pressuring the ball handler to make it hard to get it into the post. That's part of defending the post too, and UConn did such a fantastic job at that, I feel like, tonight, and that's what they talked
Yeah.
about. Obviously, it's different. You don't have the Lauren Betts, or you don't have the Aaliyah Boston or the Camila Cardoso on
Right.
Sunday, but the pressure is still going to be really important. I feel like that's a key part of UConn's defensive identity.
Yeah, I think you see it. You see it in the half court press that they run for quite a bit of the game, and just the constant pressure. You saw it. They're up 35 in the second half, and they're still applying that much pressure every single possession.
Yeah, and that to me too, being up 35, that's something I want to go back to that stood out to me tonight. It's just that from both South Carolina and UConn, I think you can tell when you watch them for 40 minutes. These are teams and programs and coaches that have that championship pedigree. And I'm not saying that like Texas and UCLA came in here and just like weren't trying
Mhm.
or anything like that, but every now and then you see like a lapse. You see like there was a time when Texas got beat down the court off of a made free throw, and fortunately for them, South Carolina traveled. But like you just can't have that happen. And like there were times where with UCLA where things like that happened too. With UConn and South Carolina, they're up 15, 20, 25. 2 minutes left of the game. They're still
Right.
so locked in. It doesn't matter. They do not take a second off for 40 minutes, and that's what champions do. And so I'm going to be really fascinated to watch that on Sunday because I don't think that's going to be an edge one of them
Right.
has over the other one anymore. Like no one's going to beat themselves on Sunday.
Yeah, there's a reason why Gino and Dawn have been here so many times, and it's because they know like how hard it is to win a national championship. I think a lot of times people look at these programs and are like, oh, they have the best players. Like it's just easy to get back here every year, year in and year out. But it's like so much work goes into that, and the way that they play and how hard those teams play is such a huge part of why they are where they are every year.
No question. And how together they play. I think the
Yes.
cohesiveness, UConn's ball movement, South Carolina's communication on defense,
Mhm.
it's five playing as one when you watch these two teams. And we should talk about the game on Sunday a little bit. But was there anything else you wanted to hit on with UConn UCLA?
I think the only other thing was like AZ came out and hit 19, scored 19, all 19 of her points in the first half today. And I thought just looking back at that Elite Eight game where like she shot 0 for 9 for the first 3 quarters, and Gino runs the screen for her for the play at the start of the fourth quarter when USC has cut it back to or down to 5, and you just like kind of look at that moment and like the mental state she could have come into this game with versus what she ends up coming into this game with because of that like last quarter of that game. I feel like it's just like really impressive, like the future thought from Gino there to see that and
Chestnut
to set that
checkers.
up.
Chestnut checkers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Seeing three moves ahead, the trust in your player, huge. And yeah, AZ didn't have a great weekend last week in Sweet 16 either. She
Yeah.
didn't really shoot the ball particularly well, but she came out tonight and was fully back in that
Yes.
regard. So on that note, we're gonna have a preview a little bit more in depth coming tomorrow of that championship game on Sunday. So we're just gonna kind of hit it real quick tonight. But what are you looking for in that game? What's gonna separate the team that wins?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing you looked at the way South Carolina shot the ball tonight. If they continue to do that, that's going to make them really hard to beat, given their size inside and everything else they do on the defensive end. To also shoot 60%, and it doesn't have to be 60%, but to shoot at the clip they did from 3% or from three today, I think it makes them really difficult to beat. For UConn, I mean, obviously a lot of what they did tonight, but you look back to the matchup earlier this season that UConn won. I think they won the Battle of the Glass in that significantly. I think South Carolina is going to have to make sure that UConn doesn't do that as well. I think that hurt them more than all the things that went wrong in that game for them. That hurt them the most, and they can't let UConn win the board battle to get the championship.
Yeah, well, South Carolina is one of the best rebounding teams in the country, and
Mhm.
that's one of the big ways they beat you. So if they're not even winning that, then that
Yeah.
takes away one of the biggest advantages that they have. And so you're right, they're absolutely going to have to do that. In addition to them shooting well, they're going to have to hope UConn doesn't shoot as well as they did in
Yeah.
that game too. Because in that game, when
Yes.
UConn won by was it 20 or
Mhm,
25,
mhm.
UConn hit everything, and
Yeah.
if that happens the other way, I think it's over as well. But hopefully we get a better game than both the games tonight.
I think we will. I just think that you look at these two teams and like they both have so much depth, which I think kind of bodes well for a good game. Yes, I think UConn has a little bit more star power, but then like South Carolina's depth goes even deeper than UConn's depth, which is still pretty good. So I think it should be a fun matchup. I don't think we're gonna get a 17 or a 30-point game in that
I don't either. I think it's going to be
one.
down to the last minute of this
Yeah,
one, and I think it's been a little bit since we had a national championship like that. I think you got to go
yeah.
back to Aaron McDonald missing that shot at the end, if I remember correctly. So hopefully we get something like that. Sign me
Yeah.
up either way. But any last thoughts before we wrap up tonight?
No, I think that's good.
All right, yeah. Stay tuned for the preview pod coming tomorrow, and make sure to tune in on Sunday. And thanks for hanging out with us.